join with my computer audio. Magnet, stop. Cool. Let me just do this full screen. Hey, is that Jordan?
This is Jordan.
Hey, what's Jordan. Let me start my camera. Boom. There we are. I like it. I don't know about my setup here. Let's see. I warned people that this was probably going to be a terrible, terrible experience for them. Here, this seems to work. How about gallery view? I don't know why there were two videos for speaker view.
They're just going to struggle along with us. That's all.
Yeah. This is, I don't know why I like to overextend myself in this way, but no audio for Jordan. Man, that's frustrating.
I will do audio things for you.
No, I know yours is working. I was just saying to the folks on the stream.
People are there?
Yeah, so I'm checking some on Twitch. Sorry, we're live. Warning. Which I'll still be a failure. So Twitch has a few viewers. I'm on YouTube as well, and also on Periscope. But the problem is that there's no audio for you, but they can hear like this YouTube video that I'm playing. So
okay, so I don't know if that's anything I can do on my end.
No, I don't think it is. And maybe I'll just wrap up the screen. We'll try it next time. I'll have to get some coaching by an OBS expert because the more important thing to me is the conversation with you. So yes. We'll leave it up for a little bit. But if there's no audio, guys, I apologize for Jordan.
If YouTube is working, I feel like we could just keep it rolling.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know. We'll see what we can do, but we'll just keep it rolling. So let's get into it. Let me really quickly, Jordan. Thank you for coming on. First of all, is the last name Jordan Gall? I'm guessing. Is that right?
Gall. That's it.
Okay, Gall. Okay, perfect. So Jordan, I am familiar with your work because I've been listening to your podcast with Brian Castle, Bootstrapped Web. The little plug there. It's at bootstrapweb.com. And that is of particular interest to the folks watching, probably because I have a site called bootstrappers.io, which has a newsletter attached to it. And I let them know that I was going to be doing this with you today, and maybe they can't hear what you're going to be saying. But if nothing else, check out Jordan and Brian's podcast at Bootstrap Web. And then also, like, I've been following your work with Carthook and stuff. So the show that I have in mind here is really, I'm calling it Unconventional Wisdom, which is just a play on words, conventional wisdom, right? That's what everybody thinks is the de facto case in any particular scenario. But what I'd like to do is get people on to share their unintuitive or unconventional business advice. So if the entire world is telling you to build your email list, then maybe somebody comes in and says, email is dead. I don't even use email. I've built $1 million business using some other marketing channel that's much more effective. So, I've been reaching out to people in my network, and you said that you had some great stuff to talk about today. I've got the notes over here to my side. So I know that I'm trying to figure out which one, because they're all kind of juicy. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to start with, because I think that it might go for a while.
I think the right place to start is just on the topic. Right? I like that topic a lot because my experience over the past few years has gone from trying to consume everything I can to understand what the conventional wisdom is and what best practices are. Mm-hmm. And then what actually has unfolded is just not even remotely close to what was expected to happen or what I should be doing. And if I look back at the past few years, nothing is according to conventional wisdom. Everything's different. And so what it's led me to do is basically just stop listening to the conventional wisdom. I just stop, not even listening to it. I just don't come across it. I don't.
You filter for it, right?
Yeah. Barely. It's almost like I'm all full on advice now. I have acknowledged that I have no idea what I'm doing and nobody can help me. So I'll just stop looking for advice.
Yeah. So that's the whole concept behind just-in-time learning, right? Like that's gaining some steam. I hear that mentioned a lot. It's like when you need a new skill, because it's critical to you making the next step in your journey, then go learn what you need and only what you need to take action, and then stop again. So it sounds like you're kind of at that point, and maybe even past that, in that I don't need to learn any more skills. I have what I need to do what I'm trying to do on a day-to-day basis, and I'm all set, right?
It's definitely not that I'm all full on skills and I'm, a perfect CEO. Right. And so it's definitely not that, but it is, there is something to being distracted by hearing what works for somebody else, mm-hmm. and then trying to replicate that for your own business. I have not had much success doing that.
Right.
So it's the just-in-time learning thing makes sense. Like, let's say, for example, we're doing a partner webinar. Let me go do some research on what other people are talking about partner webinars and what works. And then that kind of gets incorporated, and then it gets contextualized. It's like, okay, that worked for you. How does that get applied to my business? So it's definitely not the position that I don't need any more advice because I know exactly what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. But there is something to, this is just my journey and I got to figure it out. Listening to other people and how successful they were, I find it unhealthy for me personally, because I am a naturally envious person. I hear about other people's success. I don't feel as good about myself.
Right.
And right now, one of the critical things in managing this company through this stage is to feel good about myself. I need to feel good, confident, strong, optimistic. I don't need to hear about some freak show unicorn who built a $50 million a year business in 3 years, because that doesn't do good for me. So that's like me acknowledging, okay, this is my personal weirdness and chemistry. So I try to avoid that stuff.
Right. And maybe before we go any further, it might be helpful, and this is an error on my part as the host, but to talk about, you say my company, let's talk about what you're working on right now. Because I know a lot of shows will go into, tell me about your background. What was your childhood like? When did you get into entrepreneurship? Tell me about your lemonade stand or selling baseball cards. Like, they can hear that somewhere else. I want to focus on, like, what are you working on right now? What's getting you excited about the business you're working on right now? And then we can get into like some of your unconventional wisdom you want to share.
Yeah. I think all that history is relevant, because everyone comes at these things from their own point of view and experience and all that. But yeah, I think it's good to skip over that a lot of times. Yeah. So right now I'm running a company called Carthook. That's Carthook, Carthook, and it is for e-commerce stores to be more successful. So specifically what we do is we work on the Shopify e-commerce platform, and we give Shopify merchants a fully customizable checkout experience. So Shopify is this amazing platform that's grown tremendously. But one of the things that they haven't done is they haven't given much flexibility on the checkout page, the checkout process overall. So that's what we do for marketers. A lot of marketers these days are focused on the checkout as a strategic part of their funnel. So they want control over the checkout page, and they want to accomplish something called post-purchase upsells. That's what the product does. The company is 4 years old. First 2 years were not pretty, not pretty at all. Third year, things started to click. And then the fourth year that we're in now, all of a sudden, it's just growing a lot faster. And we're growing the team. We're 15 people going to 18 in a few weeks. And now it's like a different thing entirely to manage.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was doing a little bit of research and I looked at your LinkedIn and it said Carthook 5.5 years. And I think that's, timely given what our mutual contact, Justin Jackson, has been writing about, right? And he's been sharing some quotes about how, I think it was MailChimp, took like 6 years until it could replace their salaries and be sustainable and they could work on it full time. So like, you're kind of like right at the precipice of that. And it sounds like things are going well. Like, it sounds like things are clicking and you're excited about where you guys are at. So I just thought it was interesting to draw the line between your particular time working on Carthook and kind of that number that had just been thrown out recently of like 6 years is right where it kind of starts to make sense as a bootstrap company, which I believe you guys are, but I know you have a couple of co-founders and you might have taken some investment recently, but it started out of your own pocket. I don't know, maybe you set me straight there.
So we are no longer bootstrapped. And this is, I think, one of the things I'd like to talk about in this interview in terms of conventional wisdom these days between bootstrapping and VC. And there's these different camps, and one responding to one and then the other, and one being overglorified, then the other one being overglorified. And I think that conversation that Justin Jackson's kind of propelling is really important. And I have a strong point of view on it, because I have a podcast called Bootstrap Web. Right, I come from that background and mentality, but we took money from friends and family, and then we took more money from friends and family, and now we're no longer bootstrapped. And my point of view on bootstrapping has just changed a lot. Those first few years were unbelievably painful. Like I guess LinkedIn has 5 years or whatever it is, but it started off as a little side project. Then my original co-founder got his dream job and left because the company was doing like $1,000 a month, and there's no way he should have foregone that opportunity.
Right.
Then a new co-founder came in. Then we raised money. Then we started to go faster. Then we launched a second product, and it was very, very painful for those first few years. So yeah, we can get into that as well.
Yeah, let's do that. So maybe before we do though, how do you, I know some of this is talking about semantics, but one of the conversations I've been having over and over again is like, what does bootstrapping really mean? Like to me, if you started a company with your own funding and resources, like money out of your own pocket and your skills and capabilities and what you had available to you as an individual, and then it ends up growing into something that takes on institutional investment or whatever, then that still is a bootstrap company. Like its origins were bootstrapped, right? So are we on the same page here? Is that kind of how you feel?
I have no idea where the page is. That's my issue with bootstrapping right now, because people, I guess the clearest definition of bootstrapping is not taking outside investment. But what does that mean? Like a business requires money. Even to incorporate the business requires money. So there's investment coming from somewhere. It might come from you. It might come from savings, credit cards, consulting fees, a different product, info product, your dad, your sister-in-law. Somewhere there are resources coming in. And so what does bootstrap mean? Okay, so what Justin Jackson called it is texture. Like each bootstrapping story has its own texture. I like that terminology, with really just kind of a term for what else happened in the business that allowed you to get this thing off the ground. So my texture is that the previous business that I was in had this strange timing setup where you did a lot of work for your clients and then you got paid about a year later. And so I ran that business for a few years. And then when I left, I still had the income coming in from the previous year's work. So that's my texture. That's my, aren't I brave and bootstrapping? But I had a year's worth of income coming in.
Right.
You want to call that bootstrap? Sure. But there was investment from somewhere. So I am really against the religious, like ideological point of view of, as long as you don't take the big bad VC money, you're still bootstrapped. Like, I don't know, what's bootstraps? Every business requires money. And however you get through that initial period until you can sustain yourself with the revenue produced from that business, who cares how you got it?
Yeah. And I think, extremism in any direction is unhealthy, right? And I think that's the word that you use to characterize it. As you said, some things that we could talk about today is calling bullshit on the bootstrapping ethos. And you think it's over-glorified and unhealthy. And do you think that come from a place of, you said yourself that when you see the stories and hear the stories of other successful people, you start to question yourself a little bit. You start to feel, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like insignificant or like you're behind or something like that. You should be doing more. So do you think that, the bootstrap mentality or the bootstrapper identity ethos has gone too far in the VC is evil, VC is the devil like direction, and it's unhealthy in that they have unrealistic expectations of what should be done as a bootstrapper, what can be done, what's a realistic timeline and outcome to achieve success?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. I think so. I got wrapped up in the whole thing. I've basically gone through like that journey that a lot of other people went through. My first interactions with just online business overall, I got sucked into the VC as that's the way you do things. So the first company I started was a political website. And my thinking was, this is going to be advertising driven and I'm going to raise money for it. Let me get some traction. And just a gigantic mistake, just an enormous waste of a year. And I learned from it. And so what happened to me, I was repelled by that. I said, whoa, how did I ever convince myself that that's the only way to run a startup? And I think that's what the bootstrapping ethos is, a response to VC being glorified and that being the only way to do it. That the only way to do it is you have an idea, you grab two people, one from Penn, one from Stanford, one from Harvard, right? And then you go raise $3 million before you have any customers. And that deserves a negative response. That being portrayed as the only option deserves a negative response. Now, what happened was everyone went way too far on the other side, said bootstrapping is the way to go. And the way you bootstrap is like Basecamp did it. You get money from consulting and you invest it into your business. And then eventually your product business overtakes your service business. Mm-hmm. And then you own all of your business. You're not beholden to investors. You can run it as a sustainable business instead of going for an exit, and so on and so on. But I think what's happening now is a lot of people looking at VC saying, I don't have an in. That game is not for me. I don't have any contacts. And maybe the idea that I'm working on isn't $1 billion idea. So those investors don't even want what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And so I'm in the the bootstrap camp. I believe in what they're doing. And I see a lot of people, I see successful people running successful businesses just suffering, not paying themselves anywhere near market rates because they don't have the extra cushion. And I think people are just kind of putting themselves in a bad position by being very rigid toward bootstrapping only, don't take money, and you have to do it one certain way. So that's where I think we are right now. Now everyone's kind of coming back into the middle, like, I don't know, whatever the hell it takes, just do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I find myself, and my leaning is the right funding model for your business is the one that makes it sustainable. So if that's consulting business, if that's outside investment, if that's self-funding, as an entrepreneur, I wouldn't care as long as it lets me keep working toward my dream, indefinitely, and without sacrificing too much on the personal front. I mean, like you said, you don't want to put your personal finances in jeopardy or anything like that, because that is unhealthy. That, especially if you have a family and other people that are relying on you to be kind of a breadwinner, it's irresponsible to cling to this notion that bootstrapping rejects outside funding at all costs and to your own detriment. That just doesn't sound like a smart move. So, I think that we've kind of covered that topic there. And I think, we've made our opinions clear. Maybe we can dispel another popular opinion that's kind of coming out of that Silicon Valley scene. And it's really like, you have to validate your idea, move quickly, validate the idea, and then double down on it only if it works. But you seem to be suggesting that with Carthook, you guys took the approach of, if you build it, they will come, right? Like, you didn't necessarily wait for that definitive validation. You kind of just saw an opportunity in the market, saw a problem that needed solving, had the confidence in it, built it, and had the faith that the customers would come.
Yes. We looking back, it's been very much if you build it, they will come product and scenario that unfolded. That's not to say that we completely ignored talking to people in the market, but we definitely did not do what you're, quote, supposed to do to validate everything and iterate very quickly and experiment and put out hypotheses and then adjust and lean startup. We didn't do any of that. We just knew the market, right? So the way things unfold in our company is we launched a cart abandonment app. So that's an app for e-commerce that just keeps track of visitors to the checkout page. When they type in their email address in the email field, the JavaScript captures the email address. And then if they don't end up completing the checkout, you then trigger a campaign of emails that's designed to bring them back to finish the purchase. Relatively well understood now. It wasn't as well understood then. Now it's totally common. We started with that. And that's because I used to run an e-commerce business. And after selling that business, I looked at all the software that we use and identified that as a terrible product that I would never cancel because it just made us thousands of dollars every month, even if the product was terrible. Mm-hmm. So the initial idea was, let's build a better one of those. So even there is that's a copying strategy. That's not innovation. That's not there's nothing. It's just, okay, that thing sucks. Let's build a better one of those.
Right.
That's where the company started. So we were talking to people in e-commerce a lot. When we identified the larger opportunity of building a checkout product, that was, we did some validation. We talked to some people, and then we went with our gut, and then we built it for a long time. And then when we released it, it was like an immediate smash hit. And it was like...
So maybe before you go in a little deeper, Jordan, talk us through what did those early days look like? So you say you talked to some customers and then you built it for a long time, right? But if we had to quantify that timeline, I know you don't have exact numbers probably, but so what does that look like? Did you spend a month talking to customers and then 3 months building in silence, or what did that, or were you interspersing your customer conversation throughout, saying, here's an early version, here's what we're thinking, what do you think about this?
So it started off with a brainstorm from me in Slack to the other guys. There was only 4 of us in the company at the time. So, we're the 2 engineers were in Slovenia. They still are. So it was like, I'm in Portland, Benner's in New York, and then with the 2 developers in Slovenia, which basically means Slack's just going around the clock. Just 24 hours a day. It's just conversation, talking, good morning, good night, and so on. And I had a brainstorm of, hey guys, I think the bigger idea is the actual checkout. If you think about it, the cart abandonment app was taking abandoned visitors and trying to get them back. And I basically said the bigger idea is actually creating a better checkout page that creates less abandonment to begin with. And that's floating further upstream in the value chain. It's going closer to the sun, basically, because we do the payment processing. And so it's definitely a much bigger, hairier project, but also potentially much bigger upside because of the value it provides. Once I had that idea and started sharing it, they basically said, you're kind of crazy because we're a 4-person team and you want to build a second product now that we're finally at like whatever was 20K in MRR in the first product. And I just kind of said, okay, give me some time and I'm going to go dig in. And I went into Facebook groups and I started doing searches for specific terms and then looking at conversations and screenshotting those and putting those into Slack. And I basically said, guys, can you read between the lines here what people are looking for? This is what they're looking for. And so that it was a lot of that validation. And then every once in a while, I would ping the person in Facebook that wrote something very closely aligned with what I was thinking. And I'd say, hey, we're working on something like this. Can you talk? And then I'd have a 15-minute Zoom conversation with them. And then I would show that and write a summary of it and show it to the guys back in Slack. And that way we basically convinced ourselves, actually, this isn't crazy. This is a good idea. Here's a little bit of validation. What do you guys think? What do you think? All right. And then we made the decision to go. So it was a lot of gut. And I would say one of the things that I would want to highlight in this interview is that over the past 2 years, one of the biggest skills that I have developed is just being comfortable going with my gut. Before that, I was hesitant, worried, whatever imposter syndrome was in there. I just was not going with my gut. And now not only do I go with my gut, I tell all my team leads, guys, you have the most you literally have the most information of anybody on the planet on what to do with this decision. I trust you. Go. Is that what you think is right? Okay, let's do that because you're the one with the most information and we trust you. And don't hesitate. Don't question your gut as often as most people do.
Yeah, I think that discussion point there really highlights another one of those a spectrum where we maybe are leaning too far in one direction. I'm hearing a lot of things, especially in the bootstrapping community. If it's a solopreneur, they're saying, talk to potential customers, talk to people in your target market, and don't build it unless they're willing to pay for it in advance. Like it's almost gone to that extreme. Like get somebody to swipe their credit card or give you their payment details and pay for it up front and then go build it. And, there are merits to that strategy. But what you're saying here today is we just looked in communities where people are actively engaged, like on a personal front, and we listened to what they were saying, and we didn't necessarily even get them on the phone before we started wireframing things out or whatever. And then we got them on the phone and we said, I heard you say this specifically in your day-to-day life. I observed that. I went and put together a mock-up of something I think can solve your problem. What do you think about that? And then you went off and build it, and then you asked them to pay for it. So I think that's really just to directly state like kind of the dichotomy that we're laying out here. It's like on one extreme, you're saying, don't build it until they pay for it. And you're alleging build it and they will come as long as you have enough evidence to support that it's actually a problem that exists in the market.
Yes. Don't be a lunatic and just come up with some crazy idea and don't talk to anyone, right? Let's not go that extreme. Mm-hmm. But if your gut says that this is right, and for us, that's a scary decision. We had just raised like $250,000 from friends and family, and we weren't profitable and didn't have that much runway. And so building a second product was really betting the company on the second product. So we gathered information, but it was definitely much more of the gut says that's the right thing. So let's do it. We've done the responsible thing in making sure that we're not crazy, that people will pay for it. But then, at some point, don't exhaust research. Just follow your gut.
Yeah. So let me make sure I heard those numbers right. So I think you said you were at 20K MRR, right? You're at 4 people, 2 of which were in Slovenia, or was it 4 plus the 2 in Slovenia? Either way, 4, so you're paying some salaries there, I'm guessing, at least a couple. 20K MRR, you just raised 250K, and effectively building this second product, you were putting what at risk, right? Like how did you ballpark? Is this $100,000 investment on a gut call, or what kind of level of risk? I'm trying to put the folks at home in the position of like, this is a tough decision and I went with my gut, right?
It was okay. So if we're going to be honest about that particular situation, the truth is with money in the bank you're not gonna go flying into the wall at 80 miles an hour, right? You're gonna see ahead of time that you're running out of money, and then you're gonna have to fire people to make sure you don't run out of money. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we were just gonna disappear and the bank account was gonna go to zero if it didn't work. But it was pretty clear that we can't do both at once. We can't focus on the current product and grow it, and then at the same time build a completely new product, start marketing it, start attracting customers. So it definitely felt very much like it was a bet the company move, because even if things had gone poorly and then we were able to adjust and maybe fire, half of us and so on, that basically would have broken the company and broken the confidence and then broken all the work we had done. And we would have had to start all the way from scratch, which would not have been a good time at all.
Yeah, it puts you behind your objectives far enough that things probably would have fizzled out, like whether it's motivation or funding or just people leaving because they don't believe in the mission or they get disenfranchised or whatever. It was kind of an all-in move at the time.
Yes, and right back to one of our earlier points, I have 3 kids and a wife, and I was not prepared to take a minuscule salary. I had to take a pretty substantial salary just to keep things afloat and not destroy my savings. And so that I was not interested in changing that and going all the way down in salary and so on. So it was a clear-eyed decision of, okay, this is a serious decision. If we screw this up, this thing probably won't work out.
Yeah. And I think this is a valuable piece of advice for anybody listening is like, your gut feel, your intuition is a deep-seated, like evolutionary programming that's happening in your brain and, philosophically in your heart. And it's there for a reason, right? Like if you are walking through the woods at night and you feel uneasy, like you get the hell out of there, right? You just never know, because over the years, like people have been mauled by saber-toothed tigers because they didn't get the hell out of there, right? So your intuition exists for a reason. And I think that in an age where we're constantly connected and we're so tied into like business, and we lose a little bit of the self-reflection and the confidence that it takes to just make that gut call. Like you are a smart individual, you're top of the food chain, right? Like if you observe signs in the environment that indicate that things are going to go very poorly or that they could go very well, and you feel strongly about it, then just go for it one way or another, or cut ties, but listen to what your gut is telling you, because it is something that is powerful and influential, and it exists for a reason.
Yes, and it's heartbreaking when I hear other people that I respect, I think are smart, accomplished, they have the guts to go and create their own business, which is just a gutsy thing on its own. Mm-hmm. And when I talk to them, they're basically regurgitating, well, this influencer said this thing, and this guru said this thing, and I read this thing that they did. Maybe that will work for me too. And I just want to be like, how about you? You're good just the way you are. Just go do your thing and figure it out. What I've started to do now is consciously like nurture my ego. Like I'm aware that it is this fragile thing. It's part of why I don't listen to too many podcasts. Well, ironically enough, I don't read too many blogs. I don't seek out constant advice, because anything that penetrates that healthy ego of I'm confident, I know what I'm doing, I'm good, is a bad thing. So it goes throughout. It's a holistic thing, man. I go to the gym and I feel good about myself, and I'm like, that's good for business too. And I eat and I've lost weight and I feel good, and that's good for business too. And things go well and I celebrate them, and I'm like, I'm trying to protect this thing that allows me to say, I feel confident in that decision. I don't care what other people say. I think that's the right thing. Let's do that. And I encourage other people to do the same thing.
Well, I think there are maybe a couple of important caveats that we would put on this, and I will never put any words in your mouth, Jordan. So if you have a difference of opinion, then please speak up. But I would say that, we're saying trust your gut, but not without reservation, right? Like you had evidence from the market that suggested that there was demand for your product. So what we're saying is like, observe the environment, take it in, make an educated decision. And then if you feel confident about it, go with your gut, right? So that's point number one. Don't follow it blindly, right? But use evidence to support your case, and make a gut call and commit to it, I think, is the important part. And then the other thing that I wanted to say about this is back to your point about it being holistic. It comes from within, and people think that you don't necessarily like have to be a soldier who's been in combat or anything to undergo stress, right? Like stress is just different in this day and age. And if you are overworked, if you're tired, if you are stressed out about other things, friends and family, and then you have this gut decision that you need to make, like those things influence how you're feeling, right? And that might be one situation where you want to stew on it for a little bit, because if you make a gut call and it's haphazard and you have some other things going on, like this goes back to my point about we just need to have self-awareness and know that like I'm feeling this way. Okay, look in the mirror. Why am I feeling this way? Is there anything that might be influencing this positively or negatively that could make my strong gut feeling to go with this something that might not necessarily be the right choice? Like, should I stew on this for a couple more days and then come back and revisit it after I've had a workout, after I've gotten some sleep, after I've kind of ironed things out with a relationship or whatever? So those are two things that I wanted to say is like, basically just, we're saying go with your gut, but don't jump in blindly. Like either have evidence to support it or know that you're coming from a place of power and confidence and you have the rest of your proverbial shit together, and your gut feeling is something that you can rely on right now because everything else is in place and you're operating at a high level.
Yes, the difficulty, right, that we're talking about right now, and the reason we constantly want to give these caveats is because none of this is black and white.
Right.
Right. It's the same thing as the VC versus bootstrap. It's not black and white, man. This is like real life and that's colorful. So yeah, all of this stuff comes with like, what we really should have said at the beginning is Jordan's going to give a bunch of advice that he believes you should listen to very little of because this is what's working for him and the rest you can kind of ignore. So that's almost like every situation like this in terms of advice or what you should be doing. What I like to focus on is, this is a crazy adventure. Starting your own company is a trip, man. And it goes a lot longer than you think it's going to go. Everything goes slower than you want it to go. You don't actually know where you're going to end up. Weird things happen, great things happen, bad things happen along the way. The last thing you want to do is run it according to someone else's like input. Like this is your thing, man. May as well do it. You didn't forego the safety of a salary just to get into a position where you're constantly listening to what other people tell you. That's defeats the whole purpose. Yep. So I think it should be encouraging and part of the fun to chirp out on it, man. Do what you think you should do.
Well, I'm a little curious now that you bring that up because, we're speaking as if everybody that's listening is a solopreneur and they're the only one building their thing. But in your case, I mean, you have some co-founders, right? So what happens when your gut conflicts with somebody else's gut and you both feel strongly, but in opposite directions? How did that ever happen? Did you deconflict it? What steps did you take there?
Constantly. This is where, for my personal situation, I'm a middle sibling, and I think about that constantly as CEO because the skill set of getting what you want without disappointing anyone is a real challenge. You have to listen to people. That has become increasingly interesting the more people are on the team. You just have to be more attuned, more aware to individual people's needs, and make sure that you don't devolve into unhealthy disagreement, that things are debated. You want to foster an environment where people can disagree and tell their opinion, but not too strongly, because then people so it is a complex monster when it comes to people. At the co-founder level, it's what we have found is the delineation of expertise. So Jordan, you know the e-commerce market best. When it comes to decisions on where the market's going and what we should be doing next and why, we're gonna let Jordan have the final say on that. When it comes to where things should be hosted, whether it's DigitalOcean or AWS or something else, I might give my input, but I'm not having the final say. And so as long as everyone feels like, hey, I'm the expert in this area, when a hard decision comes here, I have the most input on it, the most influence. I think people feel empowered in that way. And then whenever things get weird, it's my problem.
Yeah, right, I think some of the other things that we've been talking about are also relevant here. Like if you're talking to a co-founder and they're pushing back really strongly on a gut feeling that you have, and maybe it surprises you a bit because you kind of thought that they would be on board or at least wouldn't be adamantly against what you're suggesting. Maybe it's important to also be aware of what else might be going on in their life. Like maybe some other part of the company that they're working on right now isn't going so well. And, for whatever reason, that's impacting like their position that they're taking in this moment. And maybe you have to be the one that has the self-awareness to say, hey, I don't think this is the best time to have this conversation. It's not time sensitive. Why don't we revisit this in a couple of weeks? Let's talk about what you've got going on or whatever, and just kind of shift focus there. So I think, some of these aspects that we've already talked about, situational awareness of the environment, and then the self-reflection, those things also impact places where your gut feeling causes some friction and causes some, healthy debate.
Yeah. The intertwined nature of the personal life and the business at a company this size, dealing with these things, whether it's, one person, two people, five people, that small business version of things, can be messy because it is hard to separate out your personal life from your business life. I know at least from the founder level from the other employees or the other people involved in the company, it seems like all I do is work. But I have 3 kids and a wife, and I go home for dinner every night. Like I'm not messing around on the weekends. I'm with my family, but it's a constant thing. And so if you have a fight with your wife and then you go and do a Zoom call with the Slovenia team, at 11 p.m., it's going to affect you. And you don't always want to bring it up immediately. That part of it is difficult. And on one of the topics that you and I spoke a little bit about before the interview, this is one of the reasons where I am not a fan of remote work. The chemistry and connection in real life cannot be replicated in remote work. And I applaud the companies and the teams that are able to make that work at any significant scale. But we have not had much success with it. So we have 2 offices. We have a Portland office and a Slovenia office. And we're building teams inside that office. So Slovenia is run by our CTO. That is basically running like a company there effectively. And that I cannot imagine doing without that. So when we hire engineers, they need to be there. And when we're hiring people in Portland, we are hiring people who are going to come into the office. So we are modern in the sense that no one cares about how much time you spend at your desk as long as you get your work done. But the home base is made up of a team chemistry with people in person that you can pick things up. You can sense when someone's in a bad mood. You can check in with them. You can understand people at a completely different level than with remote work.
And I think what would be helpful maybe is to put that into context for the people that are listening. So we talked previously, you guys were 4 guys in a Slack channel, right? Or I say guys, but 4 people in a Slack channel.
It was, yep.
Okay. Building this product, 20K MRR, things are going pretty well, but you're starting a second product here. But today, I think I heard you say your development team, or at least the team in Slovenia, is like 25 people, or do I have that right? Like you're a much larger team now with 2 offices, but you're emphasizing that despite the fact that the offices are distributed, the teams are local. The teams report to that office. Local people are coming in. Is that right?
Yes. So it's not 25 right now. We are 7 in Portland and 7 in Slovenia, and we're in the process of hiring 2 more in Portland and another 1 in Slovenia. So we're growing. So we're 14, and we'll be like 17, 18 in the next few weeks when we finish these 2 hiring processes. But I go to Slovenia every 6 months and hang out with the team. We go whitewater rafting. We have a good time. We eat dinner together. We have beers together. We work together. It's hugely important. And I was just there recently, and I do one-on-ones with everyone there to make sure we're getting that time in, and they have access that we can kind of talk about things that maybe they weren't able to talk about, and so on. And multiple times in those conversations, I heard the same things. This is my favorite job I've ever had. I know I told you guys that I was going to work from home 3 days a week, and I come in to the office every single day because I love the team so much. I've gotten job offers for 50% more money, but I don't want to take them because I love what we're doing. All that stuff is definitely connected to how people feel when they go into the office and how they feel about their work overall. 3 weeks ago now, we had the first person in the company resign. It's the first time someone quit. They were the only person that was remote, right? He was in Wisconsin. And I can't be sure, but I think it's likely that would not have happened if they were in the office in Portland. The office in Portland, the level of optimism and fun that's happening in the company right now is like, no one wants to leave that. That's the fantasy, that this is like so much fun and you see an ocean of potential in front of us. Would you leave that? No, most people wouldn't leave that as long as we're taking care of them the right way and they're being respected and their work appreciated and all of that. So I love the office culture. We're about to move into our own office for the first time here in Portland. We're going to like trick it out and make it our own. It's like, it's unbelievably exciting. I can't imagine how that's done in nearly the same way when it's remote.
Yeah, and I was really excited to see this topic on your list of things that we could talk about because, one, I think it is going to be somewhat inflammatory. I think that if I have my finger on the pulse of the startup world or the business world right now, everybody is singing the praises of remote work, distributed workforce, digital nomad, whatever. And so that was one reason why it excited me, because I knew it was going to get some people fired up, and I can't wait to see whatever comments or emails or whatever come in. I'll make sure to share the good ones with you. But the other reason that it excited me is because I think you are someone who is uniquely qualified to give your opinion on this topic, because you're kind of both worlds, right? Like you have the distributed setup, but you also have the local presence. So I'm curious, just to get a little bit tactical for a second, is how do you, so in a fully remote team, they're using tools like Slack or Zoom or whatever to kind of communicate and keep things going from day to day. But like, how do you guys manage both the local, like we can sit in a conference room together and whiteboard something out, and we still need to talk to the folks in Slovenia, who, by the way, are like 5 time zones away. And so how do you is it really like a 24/7 operational cadence, or like how do you maintain balance and a healthy relationship with everybody involved?
It is an ongoing challenge. So it is not easy. And there's definitely no way that what I'm saying is that there aren't advantages to going remote, right? The single biggest advantage, I think, to going remote is that talent exists everywhere. And if you are limiting your talent pool to local geography, you are severely limiting your talent pool. So there's no question on that. It's much more, it's not a denial of that. It's much more an admittance of, you know what I'm good at? I'm good at people. Mm-hmm. Guess what I should do? Go with that instead of going against it. So having a team around me that feels all that energy that what we're trying to do, that's my power. So why would I deny that? So, right. So it's not a denial of one. It's an admittance of the other. We do use tools that a remote team would use, from Slack to Zoom to Calendly to set things up, all that stuff that a remote team uses. What we've had a difficult time with is that because of the 2 offices, we don't have a remote first culture. And so because of that, a lot of things stays siloed in the offices. And so our challenge is, how do we communicate between the 2 teams, right? We call it the tech team and the customer team. So product team, really. So it's product and tech that is happening in Slovenia. Now our product is actually chief product officer is here in Portland, and the tech team is in Slovenia. So they have all their own things. And then we have the customer team, the support, success, marketing in Portland. And so we have these siloed off things that, because it's not remote first, a lot of the conversation, a lot of stuff happens in real life, in conversations and in conference rooms. And then the communication, that is where our challenge is. So we've had to come up and tweak our process around communication. I mean, when we first started, when it was 4 people, it was like, all right, guys, I'm going to deploy. All right, cool, it's deployed. Somebody go bang on it. You lean
over, right? You lean over and you say, hey, John, I'm going to push this. All right, you cool? All right.
Right. Okay. So somebody out there see if it's broken. Now that we have multiple teams and multiple people and so on, it is definitely much more we're going to deploy on Tuesday. Make sure your questions are in on Monday. It's going to go to early access. It's going to be on staging. And are you ready? And is the support doc ready for the product? It doesn't get launched until the support doc. So it's coordination is now our challenge. But I wouldn't give up the advantage and the strength that we have from the in-person teams. So it's a trade-off.
Well, and to be fair, the silo thing can happen in an like if your company gets big enough, you can all be in the same building and there are still metaphorical silos of information that
Yep.
something doesn't leave the marketing floor and get to sales or whatever. So
Right.
that can happen anywhere, but I'm curious about, so with respect to the remote and distributed team, like I think that it can also, especially on the managers, directors, and the senior leaders, it can put a burden on you to be on at 11 o'clock at night. I think you mentioned this. I have a call with Slovenia at 11 o'clock at night, and, I just put my kids to bed or whatever. And I'm not here to say that, that should be a point of friction or should not, but has that been something that you or maybe somebody else on your team has kind of struggled to balance and had to work a lifestyle change around?
To a degree, but I like it. I don't ask, I would never ask our employees to be that way, right? Every once in a while, this is a startup, something happens on a Saturday, bust out the laptop and get it done. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, we work 9 to 5 and we don't work weekends. And that's our general approach. That's how I would want it. And I wouldn't expect or demand more from other people. Now, it ends up being more than that, but that's kind of our general approach to it. So I have had some difficulty personally in that, 10:30 comes around. I'm thinking about, I got to wake up early to go to the gym sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And then someone in Slovenia wakes up and we start having a conversation. And the next thing you know, we've been talking for an hour, and that starts to affect my sleep and so on. But for the most part, it's just been, it's been fine. It's good. It's been necessary. And so it's made it easy. So we have 6:30 a.m. calls twice a week. So myself and the other executives, right, one in the US and 2 in Slovenia, just get together for an hour between 6:30 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. Pacific. And we just talk twice a week. We used to do that 5 days a week back when things were more intense and we had a lot more things to fix. Now, as things have improved, we do it 2 days a week. So it's just part of our normal cadence. And at the same time, people understand I do all my appointments, like doctor and haircut and whatever else. I do it during the week because I don't have time on the weekends. But no one's looking at me like slacker boss doesn't work as much as we do, because they know that that's not the case. So we just have kind of figured it out, and we try not to be extremist in either direction.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. And, if we were going to sing the praises of the local presence, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that, like, the motivation and the esprit de corps and stuff that's taking place inside of an office, you just can't replicate that. The camaraderie and the fact that if we land a big customer, I can high five people, we can ring a bell, we can do whatever. Like you cannot, if you are sitting in Portland, which you are, and I'm here in Cleveland, Ohio, and we were working together, I'm just going to look around the room and I guess go, yes, and it's just not that might seem like a small thing, but over time it builds up momentum and it can accelerate the growth of individuals and it can accelerate the growth of the company. And I don't think that's something that we found a good way to replicate in a fully remote setup yet. And maybe I'll have somebody on the show to tell me otherwise, because there might be somebody out there that has solved that problem. But I haven't heard any stories of anybody that's been able to make a remote workforce work as well as a local presence in that specific aspect. And that is building team relationships that are super strong and people that can work together well and just drive meaningful results very quickly.
Yes. And there are definitely remote companies that have done it. We have not. And I don't think we are particularly good at it, and don't care to feel bad about the fact that we're not good at it. So if Zapier can do it and Buffer, hallelujah. It's amazing to see, mm-hmm. But I'm not going to feel bad because we don't do it. The reason I think that emotional momentum and commitment side of it is so important is because what we're doing, what a lot of startups are doing, is a crazy task. It is a crazy mountain to climb that takes years and is really not entirely rational. As an employee, it's not rational to work at a much riskier, lower paying job. You could just go off and make more money, more comfortably, more securely somewhere else. The reason you join a ridiculous little startup of 15 people who thinks they're going to turn into $1 billion company is because it's exciting and it's fun and it gives your life meaning and purpose. And it's much more powerful in all those respects when it's in person and you feel it and you're part of it. So yeah, I'm fine with that whole aspect.
Yeah, it's a level of cohesion that you just can't do with thousands of miles in between you. And back to the spectrum concept, a fully distributed workforce, that's one end. A totally local workforce is the other end. You guys are kind of in the middle, where you do have some of the cons of the distributed nature, but I'm sure they have a great office culture in Slovenia. You've already talked about that. And they have a great office culture in Portland. And in isolation, those two things are operating very strongly. And the fact that maybe the folks in Slovenia aren't super close with all of the folks in Portland, that's just a trade-off that you accept. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay, Jordan. Well, I know you're running up on time here, and I want to respect your time. So thank you so much. I thought we had a bunch of great insights here, and this is exactly the kind of stuff that I'm looking to uncover. I don't think that other podcasts are doing this consistently. So thank you so much for being kind of the guinea pig and being the first episode here. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully we can have you back on, because I'm sure you got a few more nuggets of wisdom to share later on.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on. That's right. This next appointment does not mess around. I'm going to pick up my my little 2-year-old from nursery school.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Those are hard timelines, right? Like, you don't miss that one. You can't reschedule that.
No, it's a hard stop.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for having me on. I hope people listening, learn a few things, believe in yourself, listen to rap music, get pumped up in the morning, take care of yourself, follow your gut.
Follow your gut. That's the ethos of this entire episode, is just follow your gut. You got a strong feeling, then go with it and then see what happens. That's why you got on this ride to begin with, right? You wanted the excitement. You wanted the risky endeavor, and you're going to get it if you just go with your gut.
Hell yeah. Do it.
Cool.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, take care.
Cheers.
See you.